Sometimes the person trying to save you is the one everyone else ignores. Victoria Washington's manicured fingers trembled slightly as she gripped the Mont Blanc pen, her royal blue Chanel suit catching the gleam of Atlanta's skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Crown Heights Corporation's 40th floor boardroom. The air was thick with anticipation, expensive cologne, and the faint hum of success that had taken her 30 years to build. Cameras flashed, board members smiled. The Brighton International executives leaned forward like predators sensing blood. But then Maya Johnson slipped through the mahogany doors, her custodial cartwheels squeaking against marble floors that cost more than most people's cars. The cleaning woman's voice was barely above a whisper, yet it cut through the boardroom's orchestrated symphony of greed like a blade through silk. "Ma'am, please don't sign. It's a trap." The pen froze midair. Silence crashed over the room like a wave hitting a seawall. Every eye in that boardroom turned to stare at the audacious cleaning woman who dared interrupt a multi-billion-dollar signing. Marcus Thompson, Victoria's deputy of 17 years, his smile faltering for a microsecond before returning with practiced ease. The Brighton executives shifted uncomfortably. The photographers lowered their cameras. Victoria's world tilted on its axis when she realized that sometimes salvation comes wearing a uniform and pushing a mop bucket. She set down the pen that would have signed away her empire and uttered 5 words that would change everything. "I need a few minutes." Maya Johnson learned about betrayal at 14 when her mother lost everything to men in expensive suits. The cramped staff break room smelled of industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. As Maya clutched her trembling hands around a paper coffee cup, her dark eyes reflecting memories that burned like acid. Victoria Washington, billionaire CEO, Forbes cover woman, untouchable queen of Atlanta's business empire, sat across from her on a plastic chair, demanding answers. The illuminated fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Maya's voice cracked with the weight of her cast. "My mama trusted a contract she couldn't understand," Maya whispered, her voice gaining strength with each word. "They promised her the world, said it would save our little corner store in East Atlanta. Instead, it left us homeless, sleeping in my aunt's basement while they took everything." Her phone trembled in her grip as she showed Victoria the photos. Blurred images of forged documents, highlighted clauses, secret bank transfers that would strip away Crown Heights piece by piece. Victoria's breath caught as she saw her signature on 2 identical contracts, one promising her 65% ownership, another secretly reducing her to barely 20. The room spun. Her empire, built from a single roadside shop, threatened by the same predatory tactics that had destroyed Maya's family. 2 women from different worlds stared at each other across a table worth more than Maya's annual salary, bound together by the terrible recognition that some battles require the courage to trust a stranger's whisper over a brother's smile. Marcus Thompson had been planning Victoria's downfall since the day she promoted him to deputy CEO. The leather chair in Marcus's corner office still smelled new, a symbol of success Victoria had handed him on a silver platter 17 years ago when Crown Heights was just a dream and a prayer. His fingers drummed against the mahogany desk, the same desk Victoria had custom-made for his promotion, as he spoke in hushed tones to the Brighton International representatives. The Atlanta skyline glittered beyond his windows, each light a reminder of the empire he was about to steal. "I trust him completely," he said, his voice dripping with calculated coldness as Maya crouched behind the office door, her cleaning supplies forgotten, her smartphone recording every treacherous word. Victoria sees me as the little brother she never had. Tomorrow, when she signs those papers, Crown Heights becomes ours. She'll be left with debt and broken dreams. His laughter echoed off the walls like breaking glass. Maya's heart hammered against her ribcage as she captured every detail of their conspiracy on her phone. Bank statements showing millions transferred to offshore accounts, forged contracts bearing Victoria's signature, and a timeline labeled Project Crownfall. Each photograph Maya captured was a bullet in a war she never wanted to fight but couldn't afford to lose. The shell company name made her blood freeze. As Maya slipped away into the darkened hallways of Crown Heights, she carried with her the terrible burden of knowledge. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones sharpening the knife for our backs. Tomorrow would either save Victoria's empire or destroy them both. The most dangerous evidence is often hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to look. Maya's heart thundered as she crept through Crown Heights' darkened corridors at 2 a.m., her master keycard trembling between her fingers like a weapon that could either save an empire or end her life. The building's after-hour silence was broken only by the hum of computers and the distant rumble of Atlanta traffic 40 floors below. Marcus's office door clicked open with a sound that seemed to echo through eternity, revealing secrets that would topple kingdoms. Her phone's camera flash illuminated documents spread across his desk like a roadmap to ruin. Bank statements showing millions transferred to offshore accounts, forged contracts bearing Victoria's signature, and a timeline labeled Project Crownfall. Each photograph Maya captured was a bullet in a war she never wanted to fight, but couldn't afford to lose. The shell company name made her blood freeze. Suddenly, elevator lights flickered on in the distance. Footsteps, voices. Marcus was returning with the Brighton executives for a midnight strategy session. Maya's hands flew across the documents, photographing evidence as fast as her shaking fingers could manage, sweat beading on her forehead despite the building's air conditioning. She escaped through the service elevator with 37 photographs that would either crown Victoria as a survivor or bury Maya as a corpse. As she sat in her beat-up Honda Civic in the parking garage, staring at the images on her phone, Maya realized she now had the power to save or destroy the woman who had given her a chance when no one else would. Marcus Thompson had perfected the art of betrayal so thoroughly that he could smile while driving the knife deeper. Victoria's mahogany office felt smaller than usual as Marcus paced behind her chair, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor with the rhythm of a predator circling wounded prey. His reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows showed a man comfortable with deception, his Harvard MBA and 17 years of manufactured loyalty hanging on the wall like hunting trophies. The morning sun cast long shadows across Atlanta's skyline, but none darker than the one Marcus had cast over Victoria's empire. "Madam Victoria," he said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey and twice as dangerous, "you're making us look weak. Brighton International flew here specifically for this signing. The lathes create doubt, and doubt kills deals." His hands rested on her shoulders with practiced familiarity, the touch of a brother hiding the grip of a strangler. The weight of his betrayal pressed against Victoria's chest like a stone. Maya's whispered warning echoed in her mind. Victoria's fingers found the stress ball on her desk, a gift from Marcus 3 Christmases ago, and squeezed it until her knuckles went white. Marcus, she said slowly, her voice carrying the authority that had built an empire. Why are you so desperate for me to sign so quickly? His smile faltered for exactly 1.2 seconds, long enough for her to see the mask slip and reveal the monster underneath. As Marcus recovered with a politician's practiced ease, spouting rehearsed lines about opportunity and trust, Victoria realized that 17 years of brotherhood had been nothing more than an elaborate performance. The man she'd called family had been sharpening his betrayal like a blade, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sometimes the most powerful partnerships are forged between a queen and a woman invisible to the world. The abandoned construction site on Atlanta's South Side seemed an unlikely place for a billionaire CEO to meet with a minimum wage cleaner. But Victoria Washington sat in her Mercedes G-Wagon at 6 a.m. watching Maya Johnson emerge from the shadows like a ghost carrying salvation in her hands. The morning mist clung to half-finished buildings like secrets refusing to be told, while Maya's folder of evidence felt heavier than gold in her trembling grip. Mrs. Washington, Maya whispered, sliding into the passenger seat of luxury she had never dreamed of touching. They're planning to move your assets to Thompson Holdings the moment you sign. I have bank transfers, recordings, everything. Her voice carried the weight of a woman who'd watched her own mother destroyed by similar predators. Victoria's hands gripped the steering wheel as she realized that this young woman, dismissed by everyone as invisible, held the key to saving everything she'd built. Maya played the recordings on her phone, Marcus's voice filling the car like poison gas. Once Victoria signs, Crown Heights belongs to us. She trusts me too much. 17 years of loyalty has blinded her completely. Victoria's breath caught as she heard her deputy laugh at her naivete, his voice dripping with contempt for the woman who treated him like family. In that moment, surrounded by the ghosts of unfinished dreams and the weight of betrayal, two women from different worlds clasped hands and formed an alliance that would either save an empire or destroy them both. Victoria looked into Maya's determined eyes and saw a reflection of her own hungry ambition from 30 years ago, raw, honest, and absolutely fearless. Marcus Thompson's greatest mistake was underestimating a woman who cleaned offices but saw everything. The Ritz-Carlton's bar in Buckhead buzzed with the quiet conversations of Atlanta's elite, but in the private booth tucked away from prying eyes, Marcus Thompson raised his glass of 25-year-old scotch in a toast to betrayal. The Brighton International executives leaned forward like conspirators in a Shakespearean tragedy, their faces illuminated by the amber glow of expensive liquor and cheaper morals. What they didn't know is that Maya Johnson's cousin worked the evening shift, her smartphone recording every treacherous word from behind the service bar. Even if Victoria suspects something, who's going to believe a cleaning woman over me? I've been grooming this takedown for months. Tomorrow I'll accuse Maya of corporate espionage, and Victoria will have to choose between her empire and a janitor. His laughter echoed off the mahogany walls like the sound of breaking glass, each chuckle another nail in his own coffin. As the Brighton executives clinked glasses, their faces twisted with greed as they divided up Victoria's empire like vultures picking at bones. They had no idea that every word was being captured, their conspiracy preserved in digital amber. As Marcus stumbled out of the Ritz-Carlton that night, drunk on scotch and overconfidence, he sealed his own fate with his arrogance. Maya's cousin slipped away into that Atlanta night, carrying a recording that would transform tomorrow's board meeting from a signing ceremony to a public execution. The night before a battle determines who will stand victorious when the sun rises. Victoria Washington stood on the balcony of her Buckhead penthouse, Atlanta's skyline sprawling before her like a chessboard where she'd moved pieces for 3 decades, never realizing one of her own knights had turned traitor. The city lights blurred through tears she refused to let fall, tears for 17 years of manufactured brotherhood, for the naive trust that had nearly cost her everything. Maya's evidence sat spread across her dining room table like exhibits in a murder trial, each document a bullet aimed at the heart of Marcus Thompson's deception. The weight of betrayal pressed against Victoria's chest as she scrolled through Maya's photographs, seeing her signature forged on contracts that would have left her with nothing but debt and broken dreams. Her phone buzzed with text messages from board members, media requests, and threatening calls from unknown numbers warning her to stay quiet or face consequences. The storm was gathering, and tomorrow's board meeting would either crown her as a survivor or bury her as a cautionary tale. Rising action and climax. Maya arrived at midnight, her face pale but determined, carrying a final recording that made Victoria's blood freeze, Marcus discussing how to handle the Maya problem permanently if she couldn't be discredited. "They're not just stealing your company, they're planning to destroy anyone who tries to stop them," Maya whispered, her voice cracking with fear and fury. Resolution. As dawn approached over Atlanta, two women from different worlds sat in Victoria's penthouse, surrounded by evidence that could topple an empire or get them killed. Victoria looked at Maya, this brave young woman who'd risked everything for truth, and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Tomorrow, they would walk into that boardroom not as CEO and cleaner, but as warriors ready to fight for justice. Marcus Thompson's perfectly crafted trap was about to backfire with the force of a nuclear explosion. The Crown Heights boardroom hummed with tension thick enough to cut with a knife as Atlanta's most powerful business leaders filled leather chairs worth more than most people's cars, their faces reflecting the gravity of a moment that would either make history or destroy it. Victoria Washington stood at the head of the mahogany table like a queen preparing for battle, her navy Armani suit chosen specifically because it was the color of deep water, calm on the surface, deadly in its depths. Marcus Thompson stood at the podium, his smile sharp as a blade, ready to deliver what he believed would be Maya Johnson's death blow. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying the authority of 17 years beside Victoria. "Before we proceed with this historic signing, I must address a grave security breach that threatens the very foundation of our company." The room fell silent as he pointed an accusing finger toward the back where Maya stood in her cleaning uniform, her chin raised despite every eye turning to stare at her like she was a criminal in a courtroom. "That woman," he declared, his voice dripping with manufactured righteousness, "has been photographing confidential documents, stealing corporate secrets, and compromising our negotiations with Brighton International. I have security footage proving her guilt." The boardroom erupted in gasps and murmurs as Maya stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos like a sword through silk. "Yes, I took those photographs to save this company from the man trying to destroy it." The room exploded into chaos as board members shouted over each other, some demanding Maya's immediate arrest, others questioning Marcus's accusations. Victoria rose from her chair like an avenging angel, her voice commanding silence with a single word: "Enough!" The true battle was about to begin, and everyone in that boardroom was about to witness the most spectacular corporate betrayal in Atlanta's history, and its most devastating exposure. Sometimes the most devastating weapon in a boardroom isn't a contract. It's a smartphone held by someone everyone underestimated. Maya Johnson's hands trembled as she connected her phone to the boardroom's projection system, transforming the massive screen into a window revealing Marcus Thompson's soul, black as midnight and twice as corrupt. The first image that filled the room hit the room like a thunderbolt. Two identical contracts with Victoria's signature, one promising her 65% ownership, the other secretly reducing her to barely 20%. Gasps echoed off the mahogany walls as Atlanta's business elite realized they were witnessing a masterclass in corporate fraud.
Ladies and gentlemen, Maya said, her voice gaining strength with each word, what you're seeing is proof that Mr. Thompson and Brighton International plan to steal Crown Heights from the woman who built it. Her fingers swiped through photographs of forged documents, offshore bank accounts, and shell companies, each image another bullet in Marcus's corporate coffin. His face had gone pale as Georgia marble, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. But Maya's final revelation was the nuclear option. She pressed play on the audio recording that filled the boardroom with Marcus's own voice. Once Victoria signs, Crown Heights belongs to us. She trusts me too much. 17 years has blinded her completely. The room erupted in chaos as board members shouted over each other, some covering their mouths in shock, others reaching for their phones to call lawyers. Marcus lunged forward desperately, trying to snatch Maya's phone, but Victoria's voice cut through the pandemonium like a blade. Touch her, and you'll answer to me. And that moment, as the truth hung in the air like smoke from a burning empire, everyone in that boardroom realized they just witnessed the most spectacular corporate betrayal in Atlanta's history, and its most devastating exposure. Sometimes the sound of handcuffs clicking close can echo louder than thunder when they're meant for someone you once called family.
The Crown Heights boardroom had transformed from a temple of corporate power into a crime scene as FBI agents in Navy windbreakers filed through the mahogany doors, their badges gleaming under crystal chandeliers that had witnessed a lifetime of deals, but never a takedown this spectacular. Marcus Thompson's Italian leather shoes scraped against marble floors as he backed away from the advancing agents, his Harvard MBA suddenly as worthless as paper in a hurricane. Victoria Washington stood like a statue carved from pure justice, watching the man she called brother for 17 years finally face the consequences of his greed. Mr. Marcus Thompson, Agent Rodriguez announced, her voice carrying the weight of federal authority, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and corporate theft. The silver handcuffs caught the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows as they clicked around Marcus's wrists with a sound that seemed to echo through eternity. His face twisted with rage and desperation as he turned toward Victoria, his mask finally stripped away to reveal the monster underneath. Victoria, you can't do this, Marcus screamed as the agents led him toward the door, his voice cracking with the fury of a man who'd lost everything in a single morning. I made you. Without me, you're nothing. This company will crumble without my leadership. His words echoed off the walls like the dying gasps of a fallen emperor, while the Brighton International executives sat in their chairs frozen, their own legal troubles just beginning. Victoria's voice cut through Marcus's desperate protests with the cold precision of a blade. No, Marcus, without truth, you are nothing. Crown Heights will stand because its foundation is honesty, not lies. As the boardroom doors closed behind the fallen deputy, Victoria realized that sometimes the greatest victories require the courage to watch your family become your enemy and the strength to choose justice over loyalty. Maya Johnson walked into Victoria Washington's office wearing the same cleaning uniform, but carrying herself like a woman who just saved an empire. The mahogany desk that had witnessed decades of corporate battles now held a simple manila folder that would change Maya Johnson's life forever, its contents more valuable than any contract Brighton International could have offered. Victoria Washington sat across from the woman who'd risked everything to save her company, Atlanta's skyline stretching behind her like a canvas painted with possibilities. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden light on two women who'd forged an alliance that had toppled kings and rewritten the rules of corporate warfare. Maya, Victoria said softly, her voice carrying the weight of gratitude and the promise of transformation. Yesterday, you were a cleaner who saw everything.
Today, you become my executive assistant for corporate integrity, a position created specifically for someone with your courage and insight. The appointment letter trembled in Maya's hands as she read words that seemed impossible. Salary, benefits, corner office, the power to investigate and prevent the kind of corruption that had nearly destroyed them both. Maya's eyes filled with tears as the magnitude of her transformation hit her like a tidal wave. From invisible custodial worker to executive suite in less than 24 hours, from minimum wage to a salary that would change her family's entire future. "Mrs. Washington," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion, "I don't deserve this." Victoria leaned forward, her eyes blazing with the intensity that had built an empire. "You deserve more than this, but we start here." As Maya clutched the appointment letter to her chest, both women realized they'd witnessed something rarer than corporate success. They'd seen justice triumph over greed, courage defeat betrayal, and truth rise from the ashes of deception. The cleaning uniform would be replaced by business suits, but Maya's determination to protect Crown Heights would remain as strong as steel forged in fire. Success makes you visible, but visibility makes you a target for those who profit from darkness. The threatening letter arrived at Maya Johnson's apartment in East Atlanta like a serpent sliding under her door, its message typed in black letters that seemed to scream from the page. "Quit now or face the consequences. You don't belong in our world." Maya's hands trembled as she read the words by the light of her kitchen lamp. Her new business cards scattered across a table that had once held nothing but bills and broken dreams. Outside, Atlanta's night sound seemed more menacing than usual. Every car engine a potential threat, every shadow hiding an enemy who wanted her silenced. Victoria Washington's phone rang at midnight with similar poison. Anonymous calls warning her that elevating the cleaning girl would destroy Crown Heights' reputation and her own credibility. "You're making a mistake that will ruin you," one voice hissed through electronic distortion. "Maya Johnson is nothing but an opportunist who got lucky. Fire her or watch your empire crumble." The calls came from different numbers but carried the same message. Marcus Thompson might be in federal custody, but his allies were still fighting his war. When Maya arrived at Crown Heights the next morning, her new corner office had been vandalized, paper scattered, computer screen cracked, and spray painted across her window in red letters, "Cleaners don't belong here." Security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned, and several board members suddenly questioned Victoria's judgment in promoting someone so unqualified and controversial. Victoria found Maya standing in her destroyed office, not crying or cowering, but carefully photographing the damage with the same methodical precision she'd used to expose Marcus's conspiracy. "They think fear will break us," Maya said, her voice steady as stone. "They're about to learn that some people are forged stronger in the fires of adversity." The war was far from over, but the enemy had just revealed their desperation and their weakness. Sometimes the best defense against corporate corruption is to give every voice in the building the power to scream the truth. The Crown Heights auditorium buzzed with nervous energy as employees from every level, from custodial staff to senior executives, filled seats for what Victoria Washington promised would be a historic announcement that will change how we do business forever. Maya Johnson stood at Victoria's side on the stage, her new navy business suit and armor against the whispers and stares that followed her transformation from invisible cleaner to corporate executive in just 2 weeks. The weight of hundreds of eyes pressed against her like a physical force, some curious, others hostile, all wondering if the woman who'd exposed Marcus Thompson could truly lead them into a new era. "Today," Victoria announced, her voice carrying across the auditorium with the authority of 3 decades in business, "we launched the Crown Heights Integrity Initiative, a program that ensures every employee, regardless of position or pay grade, has the power to report corruption without fear of retaliation."
Maya stepped forward to explain the anonymous hotline, the protected witness protocols, and the promise that truth would always be rewarded, while lies would be ruthlessly punished, her voice growing stronger with each word as she realized she was no longer speaking as Maya the cleaner, but as Maya, the guardian of justice. When the floor opened for questions, a senior executive in the front row stood up with obvious skepticism. Ms. Johnson, what qualifications do you have to oversee corporate integrity? The question hung in the air like a challenge, designed to expose her as an imposter in a world of MBAs and advanced degrees. Maya's response cut through the tension like a blade. I have the qualification of watching corruption destroy my family and the courage to stop it from destroying yours. The auditorium erupted in applause as employees realized they were witnessing something unprecedented, a company where moral courage mattered more than academic credentials, where the voice of a cleaner carried more weight than the whispers of conspirators. Victoria watched Maya command the room with quiet pride, knowing she'd discovered something rarer than profit, a ladle forged by hardship and tempered by truth. The federal courthouse in Atlanta had seen many trials, but never one where a cleaning woman's testimony would determine a corporate empire's fate. The marble corridors of the Richard B. Russell Federal Building echoed with the footsteps of justice as Maya Johnson walked toward courtroom 2A, her black suit chosen specifically because it was the color of truth, uncompromising and absolute. News cameras lined the hallway like vultures waiting for carrion, their lenses focused on the woman whose testimony would either destroy Marcus Thompson forever or expose her as a fraud who'd manipulated her way to power. Victoria Washington followed 3 steps behind, her presence both shield and sword for the young woman who'd saved her empire but was now risking everything to see justice served. Inside the courtroom, Marcus Thompson sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit that stripped away every trace of the corporate executive he pretended to be for 17 years. His eyes burned with hatred as he watched Maya take the witness stand, her hand steady on the Bible as she swore to tell the truth that either vindicate her courage or destroy her credibility. The jury, 12 men and women from every walk of Atlanta life, leaned forward as Maya began to speak, her voice carrying the weight of a woman who'd seen corruption's true face. Mr. Thompson believed I was invisible, Maya testified, her words cutting through the courtroom's silence like a scalpel through flesh. He spoke freely around me because cleaning women don't matter in his world. But invisibility became my superpower when I discovered his plot to steal Crown Heights from the woman who treated him like family. She presented the recorded conversations, forged documents, and bank transfers with the precision of a surgeon removing cancer, each piece of evidence another nail in Marcus's coffin. As Maya stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom buzzed with the electricity of truth finally spoken to power. Marcus Thompson's attorneys looked like men trying to hold back a tsunami with their bare hands, while Victoria Washington realized she was watching something more valuable than any business deal, justice being served by a woman who refused to let evil triumph simply because it wore expensive suits. When the jury foreman stood to read the verdict, 17 years of betrayal hung in the balance of 12 words. We find the defendant guilty on all charges. The federal courtroom fell silent as Judge Patricia Morrison's gavel struck the bench with the finality of thunder, sealing Marcus Thompson's fate with a sound that seemed to echo through the marble corridors of justice and into the heart of Atlanta's business district. Mr. Thompson, the judge declared, her voice carrying 30 years of judicial authority, you have been found guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and corporate theft. This court sentences you to 17 years in federal prison, 1 year for each year you spent betraying the trust of the woman who treated you like family. Maya Johnson sat in the gallery between Victoria Washington and her own mother, watching as federal marshals led Marcus away in shackles, his orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the Armani suits that had once been his armor of deception. His final words as the courtroom doors closed behind him carried the poison of a man who'd lost everything. Victoria, you'll regret choosing her over me. Mark my words, this won't be over.
but his threats sounded hollow in the face of justice served, empty echoes from a man whose power had been built on lies. Outside the courthouse, news reporters swarmed Victoria and Maya like sharks sensing blood, their cameras capturing the moment when justice triumphed over corporate corruption in the most spectacular fashion Atlanta had ever witnessed. "How does it feel to know that your cleaning lady saved your empire?" one reporter shouted. Victoria's response made headlines across the nation. "Maya Johnson is not my cleaning lady. She's my conscience, my ally, and proof that heroism wears no uniform." As they walked down the courthouse steps into the Atlanta sunshine, Victoria and Maya realized they'd witnessed something rarer than corporate success. They'd seen evil punished and truth rewarded in a world that often rewards lies. The battle was over, but their partnership had just begun, forged in the fires of betrayal and tempered by the steel of justice served.
3 months after saving Victoria Washington's empire, Maya Johnson walked into her new corner office as Director of Corporate Integrity, carrying the power to prevent what had almost destroyed them both. The brass nameplate on Maya's office door, Director Maya Johnson, Corporate Integrity, gleamed under the fluorescent lights of Crown Heights' executive floor like a badge of honor earned through fire and blood rather than inherited through privilege or politics. Her corner office, with windows overlooking Atlanta's Buckhead district, represented more than career advancement. It was a watchtower from which she could guard against the corporate predators who lurked in boardrooms and back offices, waiting to devour companies from the inside. Victoria Washington stood in the doorway, watching Maya arrange files on her mahogany desk with the same methodical precision she'd once used to organize cleaning supplies. "The board voted unanimously," Victoria said, her voice carrying pride mixed with vindication as she handed Maya the official appointment letter. "Even those who questioned your qualifications 3 months ago now see what I saw from the beginning. Moral courage can't be taught in business school, and integrity can't be bought with advanced degrees." Maya's new responsibilities included investigating corporate fraud, protecting whistleblowers, and ensuring that no employee would ever again face the choice between speaking truth and keeping their job. Rising action and climax. Maya's first major case came within weeks when a junior accountant discovered discrepancies in the pension fund, small amounts that could have grown into another Marcus Thompson situation if left unchecked. Her investigation revealed an embezzlement scheme that would have stolen millions from retired Crown Heights employees, proving that her promotion was more than symbolic gesture. It was essential protection against corporate cancer. Resolution. As news of Maya's success spread through Atlanta's business community, other companies began creating similar integrity positions, hiring their own guardians against corruption. Victoria watched as Maya transformed from invisible cleaner to visible leader, knowing she'd discovered something more valuable than profit, a woman whose character had been forged in adversity and tempered by the courage to speak truth to power regardless of the cost. When Maya Johnson walked onto the stage at Spelman College, she carried more than her own story. She carried hope for every woman told she didn't belong. The auditorium at Spelman College vibrated with energy as 800 young women, future doctors, lawyers, business leaders, and change makers rose to their feet in thunderous applause for Maya Johnson, whose journey from cleaning Crown Heights floors to directing its corporate integrity had become legend throughout Atlanta's historically black colleges and universities. Victoria Washington watched from the wings as Maya approached the podium, her navy suit and pearl necklace symbols of transformation that would have seemed impossible just 6 months ago when she was emptying wastebaskets and being invisible to executives who now sought her counsel.
6 months ago, Maya began, her voice carrying across the auditorium with the authority of lived experience rather than inherited privilege. I was mopping these same floors that you walk across as students. I was invisible to the powerful, dismissed by the educated, ignored by those who believe my voice didn't matter because of my uniform and paycheck. The young women leaned forward, seeing themselves in Maya's story, daughters of single mothers, first-generation college students, dreamers told they aimed too high, and workers told they belonged too low. Rising action and climax. Maya's voice rose as she reached the heart of her message, but invisibility became my superpower when I discovered that moral courage matters more than social position, that integrity can't be bought with degrees or inherited through connections, and that sometimes the person cleaning the office sees corruption that those in corner offices choose to ignore. The auditorium erupted as students realized they were hearing from someone who lived their struggles and transcended them through sheer determination. Resolution. As Maya and Victoria left Spelman that evening, both women realized they'd become more than business partners. They'd become symbols of what was possible when courage met opportunity and justice triumphed over privilege. Their story would be retold in classrooms and boardrooms for generations, proof that heroism wears many faces and that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Victoria Washington's greatest triumph wasn't building a billion-dollar empire. It was watching Maya Johnson surpass her in every way that mattered. The Crown Heights boardroom, scene of Marcus Thompson's spectacular downfall 18 months earlier, now hosted a different kind of historic moment, as Victoria Washington stood before the assembled directors to announce her transition from CEO to Chairman Emeritus, officially passing operational control to the woman who'd saved her company and transformed its culture. Maya Johnson sat at Victoria's right hand, no longer the invisible cleaner who'd whispered warnings about corporate conspiracy, but the respected leader who'd built Crown Heights' integrity department into a model copied by companies across the South. The morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows seemed to bless this changing of the guard, illuminating two women whose partnership had redefined corporate leadership in Atlanta and beyond. 18 months ago, Victoria began, her voice carrying the weight of 3 decades in business and the wisdom earned through near destruction and redemption. This company almost fell to betrayal because I trusted titles over character, degrees over integrity. Today, I'm promoting Maya Johnson to Chief Operating Officer because she's proven that moral courage is the only qualification that truly matters in leadership.
Now nodded in agreement, having witnessed her transform Crown Heights from a company vulnerable to internal corruption and to an organization where ethical leadership flourished at every level. Maya's integrity department had prevented 3 major fraud attempts, saved the company millions in potential losses, and created a culture where employees felt empowered to speak truth without fear of retaliation. Maya stood to address the board, her voice steady with the confidence earned through trials by fire. Mrs. Washington taught me the true leadership isn't about commanding from the top. It's about lifting others as you climb, protecting the vulnerable, and ensuring that power serves justice rather than self-interest. Crown Heights will continue to prosper because we've built our foundation on truth rather than lies. The applause that followed wasn't polite corporate courtesy. It was genuine respect for a leader who'd proven herself through action rather than rhetoric. As Victoria placed the symbolic keys to Crown Heights and Maya Sands, both women realized they'd witnessed something rarer than corporate succession. They'd seen character triumph over corruption, integrity defeat betrayal, and justice create a legacy that would inspire generations of leaders who understood that true power comes from serving others rather than serving oneself. 5 years after a cleaning woman saved a billion-dollar empire, Maya Johnson's story had become the legend that mothers told their daughters about the power of speaking truth to power. The children at East Atlanta Elementary School sat cross-legged on the library carpet, their eyes wide with wonder as their teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, opened the picture book that had become a bestseller across America. The Cleaner's Truth: How Maya and Victoria Changed the World. The colorful illustrations showed a young woman in a custodial uniform, standing up to powerful men in expensive suits, her courage growing larger with each page until she towered over corporate corruption like a giant of justice. 5-year-old Destiny raised her hand and asked the question that had inspired a generation. "Mrs. Rodriguez, can a cleaning lady really save a whole company?" At Crown Heights Corporation, now rated as one of America's most ethical companies for 4 consecutive years, CEO Maya Johnson stood in her executive suite overlooking Atlanta's skyline, the same view that had once intimidated her when she was invisible to everyone except Victoria Washington. Her integrity department had become a consulting division that helped other corporations build ethical frameworks, turning Crown Heights' near destruction into a blueprint for corporate redemption that generated both profit and purpose. Victoria, now chairman emeritus, spent her days mentoring young entrepreneurs and speaking at universities about the power of moral leadership. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from a young janitor at a tech startup in Silicon Valley. "Ms. Johnson, I found something wrong in the contracts here. Nobody listens to janitors, but I remembered your story. Should I speak up?" Maya's response came without hesitation. "Truth doesn't care about your job title. Speak loudly, speak clearly, and remember that sometimes the person cleaning the office sees what those in corner offices choose to ignore." As the sun set over Atlanta, casting golden light across the city that had witnessed one of corporate America's greatest redemption stories, Maya reflected on the journey from mop bucket to boardroom that had become legend. She learned that heroism wasn't about being born into power. It was about having the courage to use whatever voice you possessed to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. In classrooms and boardrooms, in break rooms and executive suites, her story continued inspiring others to remember that integrity is the only currency that never loses its value, and that sometimes the most powerful person in the building is the one everyone else thinks is invisible. Can we just pause and appreciate something